post Folu era. Folu, I miss you. Folu, I miss you very much.
She joined in on Beyond the Court this morning.
Oh, she did, huh?
Yeah, gave a cheeky wave.
Folu. Oh my goodness.
It's nice. Sorry, so this morning, Lagos, join the conversation by sending us messages through WhatsApp to 0809 444 0981. That's WhatsApp 0809 444 0981. Of course, you can send a tweet to @smooth981fm. Use that hashtag BusinessExpress 981.
In fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm going to put up a poll. Valentine, what do you think? Well, I'm thinking of shortening the hashtag to Biz Express 981. So BIZ, just to, I don't know, make it easier for. I want to
put up that poll.
Exactly. Let me see what you guys think. Also,
you'll be curious to
send in your WhatsApp message. Let me know what you think. If you want to use Biz Express 981 going into 2019.
2019.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So the market yesterday, the final day of trading for 2017, it was positive 1.3%. Although put that into context, on Friday the market dropped by 2%. So net is still a loss if you look at the last 2 days. But anyway, it was still very positive on Friday. Positive sentiments in Dangote Cement, which was up by 3.7%. Nigerian breweries up by over 4%. Seplat, our guest yesterday from ARM, Olamide, mentioned that Seplat has been a pick for them for pretty much all year. Seplat gained 8% yesterday, so massive jump for them. So those stocks and a number of others pushed the All-Star Index up by 1.3%, so it closed at 31,430 points for 2018. However, wasn't enough to put the market in the positive sentiments. We already pretty much said this was going to happen. So the market closed negative, down by 17.8% for the year. Market cap was at 11.7 trillion, so it closed under 12 trillion. Remember, compared to last year where everybody was smiling, 2017, the Nigerian Stock Exchange returned 42%. It was one of the top 3 performing stock markets in 2017, which is now 2 years ago. 31 stocks gained in value yesterday, 17 declined. Top 3 gainers: Vitaphone up by 10%, Champions Breweries up by 9.9%, Diamond Bank up by 9.6%, Stanbic, 40 Oil, Nemeth International Pharmaceuticals were the top losers. So Valentine, you already mentioned this in your news brief.
Yes.
Yeah, the UNICEF saying that today about 25,000 babies are going to be born. This is, I think we're accounting for, Nigeria accounts for 6.5% of the estimated 395,000 babies that are going to be born globally. Of that number, half of them are going to come from just 8 countries. So India is at 69,000, China is at 44,000, Nigeria 25, Pakistan 15, Indonesia 13,000, the USA 11,000, Democratic Republic of Congo 10,000, and Bangladesh 8,000.
So we're going to be churning out the 3rd most babies in the world.
Exactly, for born on New Year's Day.
It's interesting.
It's interesting, but man, look, our Minister of Finance has said that, look, they want to engage traditional rulers and religious leaders to advise them on child spacing, to talk to their constituents and so on about family finance. Zainab Ahmed, because she said that the country's increasing population growth is one of the greatest challenges that's confronting successful implementation of the ERGP, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Now, however, analysts are disagreeing with her. I think CSL Stockbrokers was quoted in Business Day. One of the analysts said that, look, a growing population is actually good for human capital, and it's good for productive purposes as long as it can be managed properly. Because if you think about people who go into business in Nigeria, whether it's catering, whether it's logistics, whatever it is, a large population is attractive because you have more people to sell to. It's only where it's not managed properly that it can now become, a weight on the government's neck, and the government is not able to sustain it. Because if you think about healthcare facilities, what was the statistic now? Only 1 out of 3 or 4 babies that's born in Nigeria is born in a healthcare facility. Yeah, 1 out of every 3 babies is delivered in a healthcare facility. So that greatly reduces the survival chances of that child,
and increases infant mortality.
Yeah, but what is it now? I think there are only 3 countries that have a worse infant mortality than Nigeria. I think DRC was one of them. I think Bangladesh was one of them. Only 3 countries. So we're in the top 4 in a very bad area.
Yeah.
So the thing is, the federal government, as far as healthcare is concerned, has to put more money towards that. But they are fighting a losing battle because more and more children are being born, right? This now spills over into, if you look at the unemployment figures for the third quarter of the year, so jacked up to 23%. You've got more people coming into the labor force. You look at youth unemployment. In fact, youth unemployment plus underemployment, I think, is over 50%. So more than half of our youth are either out of a job. So the thing is, it's a domino effect that has to be addressed. It's a really, really heavy thing. So it's something they have to look at if they want to get the country moving forward. Another thing is the education sector. If you look at our 2019 budget, which is about 8.8 trillion or so, only about if I remember correctly, 680 billion has been dedicated to the education. The contribution is still in single digits. UNESCO's requirement is that it has to be about 15%. So you've got the healthcare challenges on the one end, you've also got education challenges on the other. So for 2018 now, people are looking back on the education sector. The ASU strike came up as one of the major.
That still hasn't abated.
Still has not been sorted out. And they were ASU. I think the cumulatively, I don't know, going back over over how many years since they started striking. They say if you add up all the months of strike, it adds up to about 36 months or so. So about 3 years.
Imagine.
If you were to just add up all the strikes going back to how many years they've been going on strike. Exactly. So that's another number of semesters that is affecting when students can graduate from university. You add the fact that they are being delayed, then you add more students that are being born coming into that. So the thing is it's quite difficult. I think Business Day was the one that was looking at it. Their headline was Knox Lamentations Great Performance of Education Sector in 2018. So it's another major challenge. Also infrastructure. The lack of proper schools, lack of supplies.
Lack of qualified teachers.
Underpaid again.
Underpaid staff, civil servants.
And here's the thing: if you want qualified teachers, you have to pay for them.
Right.
You're not going to get, so
you have to even equip the institutions that train them.
They're training them as well. So it's we have work though. This year, I have to tell you,
a lot of work.
There is a lot. There's a lot of work to
But my
go
major
through.
concern is really government paying attention to these problems. Do they identify these problems and really are committed to solving them?
Valentine, if we list Nigeria's problems, I mean, I know we're supposed to be optimistic. It's a new year. In fact, the next thing I'm looking at is key events.
Hopefully,
Woo!
things work out.
Okay,
They'll
so
definitely work out.
Look, I hope so, because where do we look at now? Let's look at key events. I was looking at the reports from FSDS. They were looking at key events in 2019 with implications for the business environment in Nigeria. One, interest rate hike, right? The US is still looking at possibly increasing interest rates this year, although the Fed chairman his language was saying, okay, maybe they might slow it down, but they're still looking at increasing interest rates. They said they might do it about 3 or 4 times this year. They said they might maybe reduce it to 2 or 3 times. The Bank of England, the European Central Bank, I think the European Central Bank interest rates have been at 0. They might raise interest rates. If all this happens, we'll see what happened last year now, which is now 2000. I have to get, I think we're still thinking it's 2017, 2018.
No, that's why I said it a couple of times today, this morning already, saying that everybody should practice 2019.
Exactly, getting used to it.
So don't live in the past.
So if these other countries also raise rates, it's going to force our own central bank possibly to raise interest rates to keep capital here in Nigeria as well. You raise interest rates, you're raising the cost of borrowing, you're raising a number of other things, but it's something that they have to do because they have to keep capital here. So that's one thing that they mentioned. We talked about crude oil yesterday. Nigeria that's another key event that could affect us in this year. OPEC, of course, has agreed to cutting production, which is supposed to go into effect, I believe, this month of this new year. We've been limited, so we have not been allowed to continue to pump as much oil as we would like. The last cuts that they did, Nigeria was exempted. This time, we are not, and we've been oscillating between 1.5 to 1.8 million barrels per day. So that's another thing that is going to affect us.
With the falling oil prices, we see that Nigeria is losing about 13%, actually lower than
the budget benchmark, Abi.
Yes,
Right. So
yes.
I think oil is still at $55 per barrel right now, and our benchmark is $60 per barrel. If you look at revenue projections, we're expected to still borrow more money to try to fund our deficits, which is the difference between how much we want to bring in versus how much we expect to spend. So there's still that issue to look at. If Nigeria borrows more, at where we are now, our debt service to revenue is about 60%. I've been hammering this thing over and over again. For every 100 naira that Nigeria makes, 60 naira goes towards paying debt.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of money. So there's so you don't even have enough money you're making. You still have to go borrow more. If you borrow more, you might crowd out the private sector because it's by issuing T-bills and raising rates there. So another key thing for investing, for those out there, if this happens, if you're into fixed income, so your treasury bills, your bonds, I think the federal government savings bond, another window will be open this January, this month. Rates are likely to rise if the Nigeria goes there and borrows more money and does that to fund the deficit. So for those of you who are looking to where to put your money, you can you're likely to see treasury bills and bond rates rise, like if that happens. So that's a lot safer than the stock market. Look, if you invested in the stock market, you've lost money.
So
right?
when the rates rise, does it benefit those who already have treasury bills?
No, those unless you are putting in more money into a new issue, your treasury bills they run for under a year. So if you already invested last year, you're at the rate that you were given. So if you want to reinvest again, or for new people coming in, higher rates mean you earn more.
Yeah.
So it's a yin and yang type of thing. so that's another thing to look at. So the crude oil situation. Then of course the elections. I mean, that's now we're getting nearer and nearer. That's now next month. The elections are now officially next month, February. Yeah. So investments coming into the country in terms of foreign direct investment, it might come in quickly or quicker if the existing administration wins. So if Buhari wins and Buhari holds on to power, people already know what his plans are for the country, so it's likely that investment are flowing. If Atiku wins, or I shouldn't just limit it to Atiku, if anybody else, yes, there. But I mean, he's the main challenger. But if Atiku should win, it's been said, according to the report I'm reading, that investments might slow because they want to know what his policies are. Although he's been saying what he wants to do, but they might wait and see what exactly he wants to do before foreign direct investment comes into the country. Or Mogalu or Shore. You're being very generous, but yes, if any of those other people should win. And then another key event, electricity prices and the pump price of fuel. The tariffs for electricity, they are not market rates reflective. So those tariffs, we should be paying more.
Are you talking about the estimated billing or
it's not even estimated billing. The as in the tariffs for the metered exactly for metered people, that has to go. But estimated billing is still an issue because not everybody is metered.
Yes.
We don't produce meters in Nigeria. We have to import the meters. Wow. So the cost of bringing those meters, how many people don't have meters? That's another headache. Another headache. And then pump price of fuel.
I wish you spoke about, very good you're talking about pump price of fuel. I wish you spoke about the revenue generated by clubs.
Ooh. I wish I had more clubs to help us out. But the only funny thing, the nighttime economy. If Nigeria had 24/7 lights, Valentine, it will blow up. It will explode
because now it seems as if everybody is just going, tending towards that culture.
Yeah, there would be more because if you and I want to open a club now, we have to think about running a gen 24/7. So
overhead costs.
Overhead costs. So lots to look at, man. There's a whole lot of these key events. So hey, look, I said it's going to be a very interesting year. Remember, Lagos, let me know if you prefer Biz Express now. We're going to run that poll on the Twitter handle. Yes, so put it on the Twitter handle. Go
check out at Rotan Quotes.
Yes, indeed.
That's Rotan Quotes with a K there.
Yes, indeed. Let me spell it. ROTANKWOT.
That's right.
Yeah.
Lagos, coming up next at 7:30, we'll bring you detailed analysis of our newspaper stories this morning. Remember, you're listening to Smooth Breakfast with me, Valentine. Good morning.
So